On this Memorial Day weekend, David Martin shows us how technology is keeping the experiences of the greatest generation alive for generations to come.
We were innocent kids who weren't ready for what was coming, let me tell you.
Vincent Speranza, the son of Italian immigrants, enlisted when he turned 18.
I decided to become a paratrooper when I found out that that would probably be the fastest way to get into the battle.
And fought in the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's last gasp attempt to stave off defeat in the final months of the war in Europe.
12,000 Americans in that town held off 56,000 German troops.
Vincent Speranza died last year, but visitors to the National WWII Museum in New Orleans can still talk to him.
Did you have any close calls?
I was trying to take a drink from my canteen, and it slipped out of my hands. And when I bent over to pick up the canteen, the bullet went right through my helmet. Had I been standing, it would have went right through the middle of my chest.
It uses voice recognition software and artificial intelligence to access questions from interviews that we've had with all of the veterans, where we've asked them roughly 1,000 questions.
Museum Vice President Peter Crean is in a race against time to preserve not just the stories, but the people who lived them.
Unfortunately, we're coming to a time where there are fewer and fewer World War II veterans to be able to actually talk to.
18 veterans of the war effort each sat for 2 days of interviews in a specially configured Hollywood studio. Bomber pilot John Luckadoo was one.
It was an intriguing concept, extremely so.
What intrigued you?
The thought that my great-great-great-grandchildren could speak to me and ask me anything that came to their minds, and that would automatically scroll to my answer.
Not just your great-great-grandchildren, everybody's great-great-grandchildren.
Yes, anyone will be able to.
Anyone will be able to ask Woody Williams about seeing the flag raised on Iwo Jima.
Old Glory was flying, had just reached its peak when they raised it on top of Mount Suribachi. And I didn't see it go up, but I saw it the minute it got up.
Until his passing, Williams was the war's last living recipient of the Medal of Honor.
I received the Medal of Honor for eliminating the enemy within 7 pillboxes on Iwo Jima.
The war wasn't won just on the battlefield.
I was a good machinist, I think, because I loved math.
Grace Brown was a Rosie the Riveter who made parts for bombers.
The war was fought and won by the average guy who was down the street, or the woman who was a nurse or working in the factory.
John Luckadoo was 20 years old when he flew bombing missions over Germany.
They were about as dangerous as you can imagine, because we were going up against a very formidable German Air Force that had been fighting for 4 years.
How many missions did you fly?
If you survived 25, you were eligible to return to the United States.
What were the odds of surviving 25 missions?
Less than 1 in 4. We didn't know what we were doing.
Now 102 years old, Luckadoo got his first look at how he'll be remembered.
What was your worst mission? As we turned on the bomb run, we had an 18-ship formation. We lost 12 out of the 18 ships instantly.
So what do you think of your answers?
Kind of eerie to speak to yourself.
So that's the self.
All right.
That generations are going to know.
All right.
You good with that?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the generations react to it.
Yeah.
It's not very important as to how I react to it.
React not just to his war stories, but to what happened when he came home.
They rationed us to a fifth of whiskey a day. I soon realized that that wasn't enough. I was rapidly becoming an alcoholic.
Young generations are going to find out that too about you.
Well, I did want to convey the fact that this is the kind of state that you could be left in if you were experiencing what we experienced in those days. That war does that, can do that to you.
I'm sorry. It's overwhelming.
Corbett Summers, whose father served in World War II, was one of the first members of the public to see the new exhibit.
Everyone should have that opportunity to see that generation. I could stand there all day and talk to each and every one of them and listen to their stories and what they went through.
Fear in war is something that's always there.
You can read all the great histories of the war and never find a better answer to why soldiers fight than from the late Vincent Speranza.
In your mind, swirling around, the most important thought you had was, am I going to be able to stand up and let my friends afterwards say to me, yes, you're a combat soldier.
More than 600,000 visitors a year.
I was assigned to the 99th Fighter Squadron, part of the 332nd Fighting Group in Italy.
Can hear firsthand from veterans like Tuskegee Airman George Hardy about a time when it was all on the line.
Lives had been expended to protect our freedom and our values and what we considered our ideals and democracy.
Do you think people today have a good understanding of World War II?
Certainly not. The biggest thing they don't understand is how the civilian population, those who were not in uniform, and particularly women, rallied behind the war effort. We were unified like we have never been before, and sadly probably never will again.